I had this brilliant idea one morning while sipping my way too strong coffee in Manila. I should compare Baguio and Tagaytay, two of the most famous cool weather escapes in the Philippines, two cities that promise mountains, fresh air, and Instagram-worthy views. I was perched in the last row like some nervous, overly enthusiastic tourist who didn't know how hairpins worked, clutching my hoodie like it was a lifeboat. The road snaked through mountains that were greener than any Instagram filter could ever capture, and I couldn't stop taking photos even though every local seemed perfectly unfazed by the endless switchbacks. First stop, Session Road. I had read that it was the city's main artery of coffee shops, restaurants, and random roadside stalls that sold everything from roasted corn to knitted socks that looked like they were made by a very dedicated grandma. I stepped into a cafe with frosted windows and the faint smell of cinnamon in the air, trying to look like I belonged there, even though inside I was basically a deer in headlights. I ordered a hot chocolate because honestly, I had no idea what a local favorite was. It arrived in a mug so huge I thought it might qualify as a swimming pool for ants. The first sip hit my taste buds like a hug. Warm, comforting, slightly too sweet. I made a mental note to come back for breakfast because apparently, Baguio takes food seriously, and I was all in for it. Walking down the street, I noticed the cold air biting at my cheeks. I'm from somewhere that counts 20°C as a shirtless day, so this 18°C weather felt like a mild ice apocalypse. I observed people casually wearing jackets, scarves, and even gloves. One elderly lady passed me and smiled like she knew something about surviving the cold that I would soon learn. It is all in the attitude. If you act like it's not cold, your body eventually gives up and goes along with it. I tried that strategy. It didn't work. I wandered into Burnham Park, a sprawling green space with pedal boats, flowers, and couples that looked suspiciously like they belonged in a travel brochure. I rented a bike, which I quickly discovered was probably designed for someone who actually exercises. By the end of 3 minutes, I was wheezing like a cartoon character who just ran from a rampaging jeepney. But the park was beautiful, the flowers smelled amazing, and the people watching was priceless. There were kids feeding ducks, street performers juggling mangoes, and one man playing a ukulele that made me reconsider my life choices. Baguio has this vibe that's both chaotic and comforting at the same time. The markets are packed with people selling everything from woven blankets to weirdly shaped fruits that look like they've been through a midlife crisis. I bought some strawberries, which are apparently famous here. They were sweet, juicy, and worth every peso. I felt like I was discovering something that no tourist guide could fully capture. Even the smell of the pine trees mingled with roasted peanuts made me feel like I was in a storybook. By the time evening rolled around, I realized I hadn't eaten anything substantial, so I went hunting for street food. I ended up at a stall serving taho, which I thought was a sweet dessert pudding. The vendor smiled and handed me a cup of something warm and slightly wobbly. I took a sip and immediately wondered why nobody had warned me that it was served with a syrup that was aggressively sweet and soft tofu that felt like it was judging me. The locals were eating it like it was tea at a garden party. I smiled, nodded, and accepted my fate. The next morning, I was on a bus heading to Tagaytay, trying not to think about the fact that my entire hoodie collection felt unnecessary here. Tagaytay, for those who haven't been, is like Baguio's sunnier cousin. The weather is cool, but not enough to make you cry from frostbite, and the view of Taal Volcano dominates the horizon like a dramatic movie scene. I had read that people come here mainly for relaxation, food, and Instagram in that order. My mission was clear: compare the vibe, the food, and the people. My first stop was a ridge overlooking Taal. I found a cafe perched dangerously close to the edge of a cliff. Or maybe it just looked that way to someone who has mild vertigo. I ordered a cup of coffee because apparently, caffeine is my survival tool in every city, and settled into a chair with a view that was worth every shaky bus ride and awkward selfie attempt. The volcano looked serene, almost unreal, like a postcard someone forgot to stamp. There were tourists snapping photos, locals selling handicrafts, and dogs wandering around like they owned the place, which, honestly, they probably did. Then came the food adventure. I tried the local specialty, bulalo, a beef shank soup that is basically a hug in a bowl. The meat was tender, the broth rich and flavorful, and the corn was sweet enough to make me question my life decisions regarding fast food. I sat at a small table, savoring each bite, and realized Tagaytay had a slower, calmer rhythm compared to Baguio's bustling energy. People weren't rushing, the streets were less chaotic, and everyone seemed to have an invisible sense of personal space, which, as someone who comes from cramped American streets, was a revelation. I decided to take a walk to get a feel of the city. The air smelled faintly of pine mixed with the smoke of barbecue stalls. Families strolled with umbrellas, teenagers rode motorbikes, and vendors called out with such friendly persistence that I couldn't resist buying a few souvenirs. I ended up chatting with a man selling handmade keychains. He explained the history of Tagaytay and the nearby towns with such pride that I almost forgot I was supposed to be making comparisons. Almost. The funny part came when I attempted horseback riding. I had this romantic idea of trotting gently along a ridge with the volcano in the background. Reality check. The horse had its own plans. It bolted slightly. I shrieked dramatically, and a local guide yelled something in Tagalog that I assumed was either encouragement or an apology. Somehow, we survived without incident, and I emerged with a story that would make any viewer laugh and simultaneously appreciate the charm of local life. By the end of my Tagaytay adventure, I realized that comparing these two places wasn't about picking a winner, it was about understanding different flavors of life in the Philippines. Baguio is chaotic, charming, and invigorating. Tagaytay is serene, scenic, and comforting. One city makes your heart race with excitement and people energy, the other makes your soul sigh with peace. I rated Baguio 9-10 for energy, 10-10 for strawberry snacks, and maybe 7-10 for my dignity on that bike. Tagaytay got a solid 10-10 for views, 9-10 for food, and 8-10 for my modesty on the horse. The real value, though, was in experiencing life as a local, walking streets without GPS, tasting foods I couldn't pronounce, and laughing at situations that would normally terrify me. Filipinos are warm, welcoming, and endlessly patient with foreigners who look like they were about to faint from a little wind chill. I learned that humor is universal, kindness transcends language, and sometimes the best way to understand a place is to simply immerse yourself, make mistakes, and laugh at every awkward moment. On my last night in Tagaytay, I sat at a quiet cafe overlooking Taal, sipping tea that I actually understood this time. I reflected on the week, thinking about Baguio's energy and Tagaytay's calm, and realized something. Travel isn't just about sights or ratings. It's about connection, curiosity, and the stories you collect along the way. And maybe a little bit about surviving freezing weather in Baguio without looking like a shivering fool. Packing my bag for the bus back to Manila, I smiled. I had learned more than I expected. I had eaten, laughed, stumbled, and talked to locals who made me feel like I belonged, even though I was a complete stranger. I had rated cities, but more importantly, I had rated experiences. Raw, funny, heartwarming experiences that only come from stepping out of your comfort zone and embracing the chaos and calm of Filipino life. As the bus rumbled down the winding roads, I took one last look at the mountains fading into the distance, thinking about the next town I would explore. I was ready for another adventure, another set of laughs, and another set of lessons wrapped in delicious local food and warm smiles. Baguio versus Tagaytay? I'd say both win, but in very different, unforgettable ways. And honestly, I wouldn't trade the experience for anything.